a combat-packed action RPG with a world that opens up like something out of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. While it's certainly not the prettiest looking game out there, VIII Lacrimosa of Dana creates a system that's a jack of all trades, effortlessly making each mechanic of the gameplay feel entwined within each other. The end result is an RPG where every action has a reason for existing rather than just being padding. VIII Lacrimosa of Dana is available for the PlayStation Vita, PS4, PC, and now the Nintendo Switch. You take on the role of the red-headed adventurer named Adel Kristen. Adel is working on the Lambardia, a giant ship that's sailing across Andria to Eresia. This Titanic-like ship is filled with travelers of all kinds, friendly, snobby, rich, poor, you name it. This sea liner of dreams quickly becomes a nightmare when it's attacked by a giant sea monster, leaving the travelers stranded on the cursed island of Siren. This island isn't the tropical haven it initially appears to be though. It's filled with monsters just waiting to eat the travelers up. It's here where you wake up to your new adventure, looking for the remaining survivors of the ship as you work out a plan to get off the island and survive. The cast of characters throughout the story range from multiple personalities and traits that spawn off their different lifestyle. There's a fisherman, a captain, an adventurer, and a noblewoman, just to name a few. Being trapped on this confined island, you'll see many different personalities butt heads with each other, and though they do develop as situations unfold in front of them all, their growth as characters are really linear and predictable. When it came to the development of the characters, there weren't really any surprises to be found. I also would have liked to have the protagonist be a non-silent one. Though Adel does speak on occasion and you get the choice to make dialogue decisions, Adel doesn't actually speak your choice rather than just makes a grunt noise and then you have responses because of the other characters. It can make Adel feel like a flat character in terms of personality at times. While VIII does shine for weaving its gameplay elements to work together flawlessly, it's certainly not shining for the standalone story. It's serviceable, though not extraordinary, and the lengthy introduction doesn't help. All of VIII's gameplay, well, most of it, takes place on the island of Siren. This tropical but dangerous new island is the foundation for everything you'll be doing throughout your JRPG journey. If I had to break up the gameplay into simpler terms, it'd be half survival, half exploration. Though you start off with just a small group of survivors, you'll be given an early on task of mapping out the island. VIII handles this perfectly with reasoning behind every action. You see, the exploration of the island with just a small group of people doesn't get you very far. Early on, there's a lot of large rocks and mudslides in the way, obstacles that can only be moved when you reach a certain amount of survivors with you. Thus, while you're exploring the island for mapping purposes, you're also looking to save other survivors. Those survivors in return provide new services for the rest of the camp and also help out with large obstacles when they're in the way for exploration. In the grand scheme of things, everything is feeding into each other and it makes the objectives feel logical and necessary. Exploring the island will take you across the many biomes and ecosystems of it. The sandy beaches, the southern tide pools, and the lush forests just to name a few. Like an HM move in a Pokemon game, you'll occasionally come across adventure gear that opens up new pathways of exploration. Early on, you'll find a pair of gloves that'll let you climb vines, suddenly opening up this horizontal world vertically. It's very Metroidvania like how you'll often find new gear that can then further open up previous smaller sections of the world into much larger ones. Different animals and critters live at each one of these areas and only get increasingly more strong as you get deeper into the island. Despite the stat increases in enemies, they always felt predictable enough that it wasn't too difficult to fight them so long as I was at a decent enough level. The combat has you controlling a party of up to 3 characters that you can switch between on the fly. Each party member has a different fighting style too. Adel, for example, has a balanced style while Sahad has a slower though much stronger attack. Aside from a basic attack, you can equip up to 4 skills per character. These skills use the SP that's gained as you fight enemies and ultimately build up towards a special attack that you can see at the bottom right of the screen. The combat system feels swift and fun, though like a management system of knowing when is the right time to switch to a new character, as each one of them has their own HP and SP. Certain enemies are weaker against certain types of fighting styles too, so it all goes back to strategizing. You can further improve your battle tactics by looking towards your growing village of survivors. You can craft health items with the ingredients you find throughout the island, or weave together clothing that gives you buffs. VIII Lacrimosa of Dana provided some of the best action RPG fun I've had since I last played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 last year. Everything feels meticulously in place for a reason, though much like Xenoblade, it's not the prettiest looking game on the platform. There's no beating around the bush here. VIII is not a game that looks like it was made in 2018. It's a game that started off on the PlayStation Vita, then came to PS4 and PC, and now it's on the Nintendo Switch. To be blunt, it looks very much like an early PS3 game or an up-res PS2 game. This being a review of the Switch version of the game, I found it to be lacking in the visuals, especially in comparison to the other platforms. In comparison to the Vita version, the Switch version certainly is higher in resolution and frame rate, being a step closer towards the PS4 version. With that said, the Switch version is still a significant downgrade from the PS4. On the PS4, VIII runs at 1080p 60 with a decent stable frame rate, but on the Switch, the game runs at what looks like a dynamic resolution of up to 900p dock and 720p dock portable, targeting a mostly stable 30 frames per second. In cutscenes, the character models look sharp and crisp, closer to the PS4 versions. In the gameplay though, the Switch gets a heavy setback with a much lower resolution and textures that just look bad. The thing that looked the worst to me and really bugged me was a shimmering effect with the shadows in the background that was constantly present throughout the game. Heck, there was even moments in the static cutscenes where the background would shift. It was very distracting. Ys has a variety of music that fits accordingly with the setting. Taking place on an island, of course there was some tropical themed music on here and it filled me with the sense of adventure and exploration. Varying on the situation, you'll hear some slower paced calm tunes that sort of relax you when you're exploring the world, but also more fast paced stuff during combat. I was personally a fan of the opening theme that starts off with a slow whimsical piano tune, but quickly becomes an orchestral masterpiece. The voice dialogue on the other hand can use some work, not so much the voice acting but the lip sync and the quality of the recordings. The Switch version of the game forces you to play the game in English, there's no option for a Japanese dialogue. It sucks because there's certainly instances where the English dialogue just doesn't match up the emotion going on with the scene, or the lip sync is just completely off. There were also times where the audio would just sound more compressed for some reason. It wasn't always consistent, but it was something I'd catch occasionally during my late night hours of playing.
Tactless and so domineering too.
Yes, just like him.
If there is anything I can do to help, please say so.
VIII Lacrimosa of Dana is a solid action RPG with a ton of exploration, fun combat, and an easy to understand progression system that just makes sense. Though the world can get pretty grand in scale, it follows a linear track that makes it really easy to follow. While the presentation of the visuals, audio, and story aren't the best, the gameplay does steal the show for this game, providing some genuinely entertaining experiences. Those that enjoy Xenoblade Chronicles 2 will most likely enjoy this game. With all that said, this Switch port in particular is a bit of an eyesore, and though it is fun, I'd say try to pick up the PS4 version over this one if you had the choice. It runs at 1080p 60 and it performs much better. There's also been countless reports of the PC version being a rough buggy port, so even then I'd say pick up the PS4 version if you have the option. If all you have is a Nintendo Switch, then perhaps wait for this game to go on sale for $10 to $15 off first before pulling the trigger. That does it for my review of VIII Lacrimosa of Dana for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, Vita, and PC. If you have any questions about this game or games you want me to review in the future, let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing for more content just like this. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.